Welcome to the first video in this brand new video series on creating an e-commerce website using React, Redux, and Firebase. Now in this first video, I'm going to be introducing you to the project. We're going to look at the project architecture and we're going to build our first components. This includes a header component and our directory component. And later on in this series, we're going to use that to send users to different types of products that we want to build into our application. By the end of this video tutorial, we're going to introduce you to the project architecture as well as building out these initial components. Now this tutorial and the tutorials to follow have been brought to you by simpletut.com. So I want to encourage you guys before we even get started to visit our website. That's simpletut.com. We post links to not only this playlist and this tutorial series, but all the others that we create, and we'll add to that going forward. We also have links to all of our open source GitHub projects that I also want to encourage you guys to check out. You can either find links to those in the description of this video, or you can head over to our website, again, simpletut.com, or you can visit our official GitHub page, which is github.com/simpletut. Our official YouTube channel, again, youtube.com/simpletut. We post a lot of new content on a regular basis. We have an entire series we just finished on testing within React. I really want to encourage you guys to check out all of those videos, but do please subscribe if you're new to the channel. If you're looking for JavaScript and React-based content, then this is really a great resource for you, and I want to encourage you guys to check it out. And please comment, subscribe. We do check all the comments and we do read it, and it does guide us in terms of the kind of content that we'll be looking to cater for going forward into the near future. I also want to encourage you guys to check out our official Facebook page. You can find us at facebook.com/simpletut. Okay, so I really want to get up and running with our project as quickly as possible and with as minimal configuration as possible. So to get started, I'm going to be using Create React App. Now, if you aren't aware of what that is, it's basically a boilerplate for a React application created for us by Facebook. Now, this is also Facebook also created React itself, so you can rest assured that this is a very high quality boilerplate. Now, what I've done is I've created a new folder on my desktop, which I'm going to be basically using to store all of my application files, etc. So I'm just going to create a new terminal window here. I'm going to be using iTerm. You can use any terminal you want. I'm just going to cd into that particular directory, and then as you can see here, these are the commands we need to type out. I'm not going to be using the typical my app directory. I'm just going to basically build this in this folder directly. So let's go ahead and create that. Just finished installing Create React App. I've switched into a feature branch which is just called Tutorial 1, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the application. So let's go ahead and do that. We can just type in npm start. Now just a heads up, you guys are going to have a few things installed on your machine to follow and code along in this series. You're going to need to install Node on your machine. You're going to need a text editor. It can actually be any text editor that you like, but I would recommend installing VS Code. Apart from anything else, just being able to follow along with everything that I do, I'm going to be using VS Code so you can follow along a little bit easier for using the same software. But of course, if you have other preferences, Sublime Text or Atom, that's absolutely fine. That's up to you. Okay, so I have this application running now. As you can see, it's just a boilerplate. It really doesn't have much to it. It's just a single page. Obviously, this is a single page application, but it's just one page. It's got a SVG and a little bit of text and a link. And of course, we want to build something a lot more complicated than this. We're building an e-commerce website. So there's a lot that's come along with this boilerplate that we don't want and we really want to rip out. So let's go ahead and make some of those changes right now. So I'm just going to go back over into my text editor, and I'm just going to make some changes. So I'm going to go into the source directory, and you can see here we have our app CSS. Now, of course, I'm going to make some breaking changes here, so don't be surprised if things don't work initially, but don't worry, I'm going to show you how to fix it. So let's delete some of these files. So I just deleted the app CSS. We're going to be replacing that. We're actually going to be using SCSS. We have this test here. Now, I'm not going to be writing tests in this series. I think it's going to be covering enough. If you're interested in how to write unit tests, then I have an entire series dedicated to testing with React and Redux. So please head over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/simpletut. Look at our playlists and find that. So let's just delete these tests. We don't need the index CSS either. And of course, we have our index.js. That's fine. We don't want our logo SVG. We have a service worker. We might cover that a little bit later in the series, but for now, we can get rid of that. We have setup tests. I've already mentioned we're not going to be writing tests, so we don't need this. We have our yarn lock here. Some people recommend committing this with the project. I'm not really convinced that's the best way to go. So for me, I'm actually going to remove my yarn lock. We have a README here. This is actually just the default create React app README MD file. I'm going to strip all of that out. And over here, let's come over to our public folder. We have our index HTML file. We have our logos. I'm just going to delete these logos. We don't need those. And pretty much everything else for now is okay. I'm going to get rid of the favicon icon as well. And I'm just going to delete that. I'm just going to come into index HTML and I'm going to remove, or for now, I'm just going to comment out the link that includes that favicon. We'll probably upload our own custom one, or if you want to yourself, you can replace it here. But obviously I don't want the default one, so I've just removed it for now. Let's come back over to our source folder, and of course we're going to have to remove all of these references to the assets that we've just deleted. So if you actually come to your browser right now, you can see that everything is failing to compile because it's looking for things like the service worker that do not exist anymore. So let's come over to our text editor. Let's remove all of those assets. So the logo, the CSS, we don't need that. We can actually remove all the default content in our app.js file. So let's do that too. It's a lot simpler now. Let's go back to our index.js file. And again, we have links to the service worker. We don't have index CSS anymore. And of course, we can remove this bit of code down here related to the service worker. So let's save that. And let's come back over to our browser. And you can see we're just getting a blank page. If you check the console, you'll notice that there are no errors now because we've cleaned up the application. There's nothing actually to show. So let's come back over to our index file and let's go into app.js and let's just write in the standard hello world and save it. Now we have hot reloading, so if you didn't know that before, you can see it's automatically reloaded and you can see hello world. So we know that the application is not erroring anymore. We've removed all of the garbage that came along with create React app we didn't need, and we can just go ahead and start building out our application. So we've already made some significant changes to our application, and we should really check in our code at this point. So let's come back over to iTerm. Let's quit our application. Let's run a git status. Let's add and commit all of those changes. I'm actually going to add this change for the yarn log file too. Okay, let's commit and let's just call these changes clean up. Do a git status. Okay, cool. All right. Now, what I want to do is I actually want to think ahead, and what I want to do is I actually want to use SCSS in this project, right? I don't want to write standard CSS. Now, SCSS is the bracketed version of Sass. And Sass is, of course, a CSS preprocessor that allows us to do some fancy things in CSS. Things like mix-ins, which are basically functions within CSS. But the main benefit is being able to use that tree-like structure in our CSS that just makes it much more efficient. Now, of course, Sass and SCSS is not standard CSS. It's not supported in even modern browsers. So it has to be compiled into standard CSS on the build and transpile and compile stages of our application workflow. So what we're going to do is we need to install a single dependency with Create React App to actually allow us to do that. So to do that, again, I'm just going to say npm install node Sass. And we're just going to go ahead and install that. And what that will allow us to do is really with minimal effort, we can now use SCSS within our project. Now, if we actually weren't using Create React App, and this is one of the benefits of using Create React App, we'd actually have to configure that with Webpack, and it would be a little bit more complicated. But because we're using Create React App, a lot of this stuff is taken care of for us. We don't have to worry about this foundation level configuration of our application, which is really fantastic. So let's go ahead, install this dependency, and move on to the next step. At this point, we're ready to restart our application. So npm start. And once that starts up, it's going to launch our browser. Again, we're going to have hot reloading, and we're going to see our hello world. Okay, so let's create our header component. So to do that, I'm going to create a components folder inside of my source directory. In there, I'm going to create a header folder. And within my header folder, I am going to have index.js. And I'm also going to have styles.scss. Great. Okay, so within index.js, I'm going to import React from React. It's going to be a functional component, so it's just going to be const header equals props and a functional component. It's just going to return something. For now, we're just going to have a header and export default header. So up here, I'm also going to import that style sheet, right? So I'm going to have import styles.scss. And it's best practice to just have a line here. Okay, so what I want to do is just have a class name. I'm just going to call this my header. And within this, I'm going to create some basic styles. So I'm just going to target the header. I'm going to set the height to something like 65 pixels. Now, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to use rems, which is a CSS measurement unit. So what I'm actually going to do is within my root directory, so the source directory, I'm going to create a new file called default.scss. And within this, I'm going to come to my app.js, and I'm going to import default.scss, right? So we're going to import that from our root app.js file. And I'm going to use this to target the HTML and the body. And first of all, I'm going to set the height, which is very important, to 100%. But I'm also going to just set some a style on the HTML, which is the root element of our document, right? And I'm going to set the font size to 10 pixels. That means I can come back over to my header style sheet. And within my header style sheet, I'm going to set the header to a height of 6.5 rem. That is basically 65 pixels. And I'm going to set a box shadow of 0 pixels, 2, 4 pixels, 0, and then RGBA, which is a color. I'm going to set it to something like this. And what you're going to see here, I'm also going to come back over to default CSS, and I'm going to target everything and the box sizing to border box, right? I'm going to add some fullbacks in here too. So just bear with me. This is just setting up some default styling. And I'm going to come back over now to my app.js, and I'm going to import my header component. So let's import header from my components header. And I'm just going to include that on the page like so. Now, if I come back over to my browser, you're going to see that here we go. We have our we have our header here is now included on the page, but it's still not quite right. We seem to have a bit of space between our header is not fully the full width of the page. So let's come back over to our default style sheet. I want to set some additional styles here. I'm just going to set the margin to 0 and the padding to 0. Let's come back over, and you can see now that our header is edge to edge. It's full width. And we just have this nice shadow that just lifts the header a little bit off the page to just bring a bit more attention to it. That's cool. I'm going to come back over to my text editor now, and I'm also going to what I want to do is I want to include a custom font. So I'm going to go over to Google Fonts, and this is just a way of getting some free fonts, and I'm going to use Open Sans. And I'm just going to say that I want to use this. So I'm going to select this style. And let's go with light. We want regular, and we want bold. And let's go ahead and embed that. It's going to give us a link to a style sheet. We're going to copy this. We're going to come back over to our text editor. And we're going to go to our public folder in index.html. We're just going to include a link to this in our header, in our head. So just above our title tag, we're going to include a link to that style sheet. Let's come back over to this and grab the font family. And let's come back over to our text editor. And within our text editor, we're going to come back over to our default SCSS. And we're just going to target the body. And we're going to paste in that font family. We're going to set a default font size of about 18 pixels, which is 1.8 rem. And we're going to set a line height of 1. You can either set a line height of 1, or you can just not set a line height. I'm going to set a line height of 1. And we're going to set a font weight of 400, which is regular. And we're going to save that. I'm also going to set some default styling on my links, right? And also where I've set the box sizing, I'm just going to add a comma here and target the before and the after pseudo elements too. And what I want to do with the links actually is I just want to set the text decoration to none. And what I also want to do is I want to add a base transition, right? And I'm just going to add a transition of, let's say, 0.4 seconds, ease in and out. And let's add some fullbacks here. Cool. All right. So we've added that. That's all in place. So let's come back over now to our home page. Let's close up Google. So you can see here we have our font, Open Sans, We have our header on the page. But what I want to do is I just want to add my logo in my header, and I just want to center the content on this particular page. So to do that, I'm just going to minimize the browser and minimize my text editor. And on my desktop, I actually have a logo, right? So I'm going to come into my my actual files here and into the source directory. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder called assets. And within assets, I'm going to just place my logo.png. And all this is just the simpletut logo, right? So let's come back over now. We've moved that into the folder, back into VS Code. You can see we have our assets folder, our logo.png. And what I'm going to do is within my header component, I'm going to add a wrapper, right? Which is just going to be a div with a class of wrap. And within that, I'm going to have another div here, which is just going to be with a class of logo. And I'm going to have our image. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import my image. So this is my logo. We're going to import the logo from. And we need to come out of this directory, out of the components directory. We need to go into assets. And in here, I have my logo.png, right? And then what we need to do is we need to take our logo, and for the source of the image, we're going to add that. And we're going to add some alt text, which is going to be simpletut logo. And that's our image, right? That's our image tag. So let's come back over to a browser and just see what we have. So as you can see, at the moment we've included our logo, but it's not looking the way that we want it to look. So let's come back over to our text editor, and we can come back into our SCSS, right? And what we want to target, first of all, is our wrap, right? And we want to set a max width on this to about 1450 pixels, and we want to center it with a margin 0 also. And then we want to target our actual logo. So what we want to do is on the wrap, we want to set this to position relative. And on the logo, we're going to say position is absolute. We're going to set this 0 pixels from the left. In fact, we're actually going to set this to be 10 pixels from the left. But from the top, we're going to set it to 50%. And we're going to do a transform. Translate on the y-axis minus 50%, and this is going to center it for us, right? Okay, so let's come back over to the browser, and you're going to see that we have now got this. Actually, it's not positioning it quite right. So let's come back over to our text editor. We are so the wrap. Actually, we need to make sure that this is the same height as the parent. So let's set that to 100%. That's now centered, but it's certainly not the right size. So let's come back over to our text editor. We're going to set a width on our logo to be about 130, basically 130 pixels. Okay, let's reload that. Still not quite right. Let's target the image tag, display block width 100% and a margin of 0. And let's come back to our browser. There you go. It's not quite right. It needs to be rem, not pixels. And there you go. So now we have our image appearing the way we want it to in our header. Okay, so far we've built our header component, but what I want to do next is build our directory component. And this is basically going to allow the user to select for either men's or women's clothing. These are categories that they can search for later on when we build up our product pages. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and come back over to my text editor, and I'm going to create a page component. So within my source folder, I am going to create another folder called pages. And within pages, I'm going to have another folder called homepage. And within homepage, I'm going to have another file called index.js. And I'm going to import React from React. And it's going to be a functional component. So const homepage equals props function, where we're just going to return for now. We're just going to return a section, HTML section. Let's just put in a H1 for now called homepage. And we're going to export default homepage. So I can come back over to app.js. I'm going to remove this hello world h2. I need to, first of all, I need to import our home page from our pages homepage, and we can include that under our header like that. Cool. So let's just come back over to a browser, and you're going to see that we now have homepage instead of that h2. And I have my React developer tools. You can see the components that we have on the page currently. We have our header and our home page component, but we don't have any props here. We don't have any components nested within that either. Let's come back over to our home page. And what we want to do is anything that we want to display on our home page, any components, we're going to include them now rather than on app.js. We're actually going to include them on our homepage index page file here. Now, I mentioned I want to create another component, which is going to be our directory component. So within components, I'm going to create a directory folder. And within directory, I'm going to have an index file. And it's also going to have its own styles.scss. Cool. All right, so within this, I'm going to import React from React. And again, it's just going to be a functional component. So const directory, it's just going to equal props. We're going to return a div for now. And we're going to export default directory. And on our home page index file here, we're going to import our directory component, which means we have to come out of that folder, go into components, directory, and we're just going to remove the h1 for now, and we're going to include our directory component. Now let's come back over here to our browser. And again, now you'll see nothing because we just have our directory component, and the directory component doesn't have anything in it. It's just, at the moment, it's just returning a blank a div with nothing in it. Now, as I've already explained, the directory component is basically just going to have two images with two links, one to take the user to shop for men's and one to take the user to shop for women's clothes. Now, those pages do not exist yet. We're just putting in this boilerplate component onto our home page. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, in the assets folder, I've already gone ahead and added two images. One shop for men and one shop for women's image. So I'm going to use them in my directory component. So the first thing I need to do is import those images into this component. So I'm going to go ahead and import shop men from, and it's basically up a directory in assets, and it's, I believe it's called shop I'll check what it's called. It's called shopmen's.jpg. And I'm going to duplicate this, and this one is going to be shop women JPG. So I'm going to have two divs here, right? And I'm actually going to input this with CSS. So I'm going to say style, and we're going to have ourselves a background image. Where's that? And we're going to use URL, and I'm going to insert the image here. So this first one is going to be women. I'm actually going to duplicate this here. The second one is going to be for men, right? And we're going to call this card, and the class name is going to be item. We'll add a class name to the wrapper here as well, just for directory. And I'm actually going to add another wrapper here as well, which is going to be wrap. And I'm going to wrap that around both of these two divs. And actually inside of the div tag itself, we're going to have a span for now. Let's actually make this a link. And we're going to just say shop women's, and we'll have one in here, which is going to be another link, shop men's. Okay, great. Now let's come over and let's look in our browser. And you can't really see much, right? Doesn't really look like much at the moment. So we're going to style this up. So let's go ahead and let's come back over to our text editor, and let's go into the SCSS for the directory component. Right. So what I want to do is I want the images. First of all, I want the content to be centered with the header, right? So we had set a max width on the header of, I believe, 1450. So we want to center the content to the same margin. I'm actually going to do this in my app.js. We have our app here. And I'm going to come into default CSS, and I'm going to target app, and I'm going to set a max width of 1450. And I'm also going to set some padding of 10 pixels from the right and left. And of course, I'm going to center that using margin 0 also. So that will give us the centered content that we want. Okay, so this is actually centered the header. I want the header to be full width. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that a little bit. I'm going to add another div here, the class name of main, and I'm going to wrap that around my header and homepage component. Come back to default, and I'm going to target main instead of app. And it's still the same, but that's because I need to come to app.js and move the header out of main. And if I do that, this goes full width, but the content stays centered, which is what I want. That's fantastic. Now, what I want is, I want these two, the directory component, I want it to be the same height as the page, right? I want it to span the full height of the page, and I want them to be 50-50. So I want it to actually be sitting next to each other. So what I'm going to do is, if we actually look, I've already set the body and the HTML to be 100% of the viewport. But we have root, we have app, and we have main here. Now root and app are kind of collapsing in on themselves. So I'm going to come back over to my text editor. I'm going to come to default. And where I set the height here, I'm going to move some of this CSS here. And I want to add in, we have an ID here of root, and we have, I believe, app. And I want that all to have a height of 100%. When I do that, if I come back now, you can see that I'm now free to use the full height of the viewport, because otherwise these two div tags here would restrict that. And if that doesn't make sense yet, then just bear with me. So what I want is I want this main and then ultimately this section to have the full height of the browser. So to do that, I'm actually going to add main there as well. But main is going to be a little bit different. What I want to do with main, which is in app, right, is I want main to be, basically I'm going to use a height of, I'm going to do a calc of 100%, take away the height of the header, which is 6.5 rem. Come back over and you'll see that now we have main, which is the same height of the browser apart from the header. The height of the header is taken away from the height of the viewport. So I can change the height of this. We'll never get scroll bars vertically because the content has not expanded that far. That's fantastic. So let's come back over now to our directory component. And you can see in here we have our a section which is for our home page. So we're going to add a style sheet in here too, which is styles.scss. We're going to add a class to our section here, which is going to be home page. And let's just add a style in here that's going to set the height of it to 100% or something like that. So now I can come back to my directory component, and what I can do is, if I look in here, I have we have wrap. I don't think we actually need wrap at the moment, but for now I'm gonna target the item, and we're gonna target item. It's going to be a width of 50%, and we're gonna float it left. Now when I do that, I can also set the height here to be 100%, and I want to set the background image position to be center. I'm going to set the background repeat to no repeat, and I want the background size. For now, let's just set it to cover. Okay, so let's now come back over to the browser and have a look. Okay, so this is not quite what we expected. Let's just inspect what's going on here. I think I know. I think I might have made a mistake. Yep. So on our directory component, we've written our styles, but we have not actually imported the style sheet. So we need to do that, of course. So import styles.scss. I probably need to make sure that the class name for item is also on the div tag for the men's shopping to shop men's, and also I'm guessing I also need to include the style sheet on the homepage component. And there we go. So now we have this the way we want it. Cool. So this is looking a lot more like what I want. Awesome. All right. So let's come back over and let's finish off styling these components. So the first thing I want to do is I want to come back over to my text editor. I'm going to just close everything, and I'm going to open up again, my directory index file and the style sheet that goes with it. And I'm going to create a pseudo element after. And what I want to do is it's going to be basically, we're going to set this to be absolute, top 0, left 0. We're going to set the background to be RGBA. We're going to set it to black but 0.3 transparency with a Z index of 1, and we'll set this to be a width of 100 pixels and a height of 100 pixels. So we're going to need to set item to be position relative. And that's just darkened the image a little bit so that when we actually add some text over it, which is actually going to be our link, and that's just going to make the text a bit more readable. So let's come back over and look at our link here. So let's come back to our text editor. And as you can see, we have a link inside of our item. So let's target that next. And we're just going to basically center it and give it a white background. So this is just going to be white. And what we want to do is, again, we're going to make this position absolute with a Z index of 2. And we want to make this 50% from the top and 50% from the left. And we want to transform, translate, minus 50%, minus 50%. That's going to center it vertically and horizontally. And as I said, we set that to be background white. We'll set a font size of, let's say, 20 pixels. So basically 2 rem with a line height of 1 and a font weight of 400, but I'm going to do a text transform to uppercase. And let's just have a quick look of what that looks like. Yeah, that's about what I'm going for, but what I actually want to do is I want to add some padding. So I'm going to add padding, let's say 8 pixels from the top and 10 pixels from the right and left. But I also want to add a border of 1 pixel solid and black. Let's come back over, and it looks a little something like that. And what I want to do is also I want to make sure that the links, I'm going to come back over to default CSS again, and I'm going to target these links, and I'm just going to set the cursor to pointer. That's important. Cool. So let's come back again to our browser, and you can see this looks good. Okay, so that's our directory component, and that brings us to the end of this video tutorial. I really wanted to focus on building the initial application, getting that component architecture in place, but we actually have managed to build our header component and basically build our home page, which is going to set us up perfectly for the next tutorial where we look at using React Router to add custom routing to our project. Again, we are building a full e-commerce website from start to finish, and I'm trying to cater for everybody in my audience, from people that are just starting out with React and people that are actually have more of a grasp with React already but are interested in possibly building maybe a more challenging project, something like an e-commerce website. Again, we're going to be looking at everything from the basics of React with CSS and as well, but also we're looking at more advanced topics in this series, things like using integrating with Stripe's payments API and building a cart and Redux and Firebase and all of these things. So there's going to be a lot of different parts of this series where we cover a vast variety of different topics and areas of modern day web development with React and JavaScript in general. but I'm breaking this up into sections so that I can give you the best value for your time. I can pack in as much knowledge, but in general, we can build the best real-world application that we possibly can over the course of this project. And I think that's really useful as well, because especially if you're somebody that's trying to get a job in the industry, a lot of companies will ask you to send them links to projects that you've built, that you've worked on. And certainly something like this, an e-commerce website, it's definitely going to be something very impressive for your portfolio. So I really look forward to the rest of this series. This was just the first one where we just looked at, building the basic, application and configuration and getting things really ready for, as I said, the future tutorials to come. But before we sign off, let's go ahead. Let's come back over to our terminal. I'm going to just exit the application. Let's do a git status as usual. Let's commit our changes. Okay, let's commit that. And let's just say this is our initial commit, right? Okay, cool. So I'm going to be pushing this, git push, and I'm going to be pushing that over to my branch. And the minute that I publish this video, I'm going to be merging this branch into master. I'm going to post a link to the official GitHub repository for this project. You can find that here. You're actually going to be able to find that in the description of this video, but you can also find it by heading over to github.com/simpletut. Once again, I just want to thank you guys for following along this tutorial, but also look forward to catching you in the next one, where we look at adding custom routing using React Router to our project. Have a great day.